Hey, what up everybody, this is Stevie Breach coming to you. Tomorrow night I am really pumped up for WWE's Monday Night Raw. I'm thinking that basically with the free month of November all over with on the WWE Network, they plugged it up into the very last minutes, even trying to get people to sign up for the very last hour to watch the very last show that they could watch for free, hoping that they would roll over their subscription into December. And they're really throwing out all of the punches tonight. Basically, after Monday Night Raw, immediately following it on the WWE Network, they're going to be having a live Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with special guest Vince McMahon. You could definitely see that a few months back, Stone Cold Steve Austin was saying that he didn't have the WWE Network, then out of the blue one day, starts, taking up ending his shows with his Stone Cold Steve Austin pick of the week. With a match that he would talk about, telling people to go on the WWE Network and watch it. It was almost sort of like a little nudge, like they gave him a little bit of money to start plugging the network, as well as on Monday Night Raw, they started plugging the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast about which guests were going to be on. If they were WWE related, they would get a really big sort of plug in the middle of the show. The one problem I have with this, I think this is definitely going to go down. I don't think that they're going to be calling Stone Cold Steve Austin to come all the way to wherever Monday Night Raw is going to be. I believe it's going to be somewhere, Tulsa is where I think it's going to be. You had a tweet sent out from the Brooklyn Brawler basically saying that they were ready to hashtag rock Tulsa. If The Rock shows up, I'll cut one of my fingers off. I don't think The Rock's going to be showing up in Tulsa. Especially if that's going to be it. I think The Rock would be the special guest on the Stone Cold podcast with Vince McMahon. Honestly, myself. But, wow, what a week to really have it. Well, first of all, let me get to the point of, WWE Network plugged immediately following after the Survivor Series. They were going to be having Vince McMahon's reaction to the Survivor Series result, basically of the debut of Sting, of Dolph Ziggler, and Team Cena eliminating the Authority. Was he going to be happy? Was he going to be upset? It never came on. There was some people who thought it was going to be on immediately after. There was some people who thought that if they waited until after the replay, which started right after the show, that it would come on after that. Some people thought that it would air the next morning. They just never did it. They never showed it on Monday Night Raw. They never showed it after the shows. It's never been uploaded as a network special that you can go watch. If they filmed it, it must have been the shits and they hated it. And Vince just said, shit can it, act like it never happened. They never took the tweets down. You can never take those sort of vignettes where they hyped it up out of people's minds. It just looks like WWE Network hopped up a big one. I remember basically them saying that they were going to go live on the WWE Network with the breaking news of Roman Reigns' injury, talking about that he had hernia surgery and they were pulling him from a WWE pay-per-view during this, I believe that was during the summer. I don't think it must have been the fall because it was after SummerSlam because he fought Roman Reigns. But he wasn't going to be competing against Seth Rollins, which ended up being the return of Dean Ambrose. And he came back and tore some stuff up, and which started the rise of Dean Ambrose. But I don't know. This, to me, honestly, is probably going to be one of the biggest things that's ever happened on the WWE Network. Even if it didn't have the sort of mystique that's going on about it right now. A lot of people are wondering what this interview is really going to be. If Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be throwing softballs to Vince McMahon, just happy that he has him on the podcast, or is he going to try to be, a real interviewer and really hit him with the hard-hitting questions? I mean, there's never been a week for really breaking news like there has been this week. I mean, like, first we get the return of Sting, which is sort of like the biggest thing that we've been waiting for all summer long. Well, maybe even since the spring. People were thinking that he was going to debut at WrestleMania, maybe the night after WrestleMania. Then it was going to be SummerSlam. Then it was going to be some other random pay-per-view along the way. Some people were thinking he was going to go down because of the video game launch. Ended up we had to wait all the way until Survivor Series. Now he's finally here. Where are we going from here? I think that's what a lot of people want to know. They want to rush, instead of letting just things sort of gradually play out. Everybody should know the match is going to happen in WrestleMania. That's the last weekend of March. We got a long way to get there, so let's just let this whole thing sort of deal out. But, once Sting all gets debuted, then comes Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, the CM Punk Art of Wrestling drops. sort of breaking huge news about what it is like being a WWE wrestler inside of the WWE. I think a lot of people would think that if you were lower on the pole in WWE, maybe you'd be a guy that isn't really thought of and really put in the high graces of management and things like that. But CM Punk was honestly the number 2 superstar in that company. It goes John Cena, CM Punk, and then basically everybody else. I mean, like, those are your top 2 guys. I think when it comes to fans, there's Randy Orton, there's Daniel Bryan, there's Batista. Maybe The Undertaker might be there, but since he's not a full-time guy, I don't really put him in that. But I mean, like, those guys are all number 3 after all of them. And basically it goes through, everything that happened after the pipe bomb, after Vince McMahon talked to CM Punk into coming back and being the champion of the company. And I guess that is what he thought was going to be being the number 1 guy. Punk never went into the fact that basically he wasn't the main event. When sort of like he was having these WWE Championship matches while John Cena was main eventing shows against John Laurinaitis and against Batista. No, not Batista, Big Show. I apologize. But, he never really didn't went into the fact of why he wasn't the main event. He just always thought that he was having the best matches on the card, and he kept saying, pay me, pay me, pay me. But I don't want to get in on this whole CM Punk rant. I've been sort of putting off on making it because the one video I made with my thoughts about the Art of Wrestling interview after I watched it, I guess I'm the hardest guy in the world on Punk, but people think that I really hate this guy because of what happened to me at SummerSlam 2011 when I met him. And it didn't go well, and I didn't think I got my money's worth because I thought he was really a dick to me. But we'll have to see. I don't know. Everybody has their sort of opinions. Some people have had the same sort of altercations when meeting CM Punk, and some other ones haven't. But I think that honestly, when it comes down to it, I think that Vince McMahon, who's never really sort of gone away from sort of like an altercation when it comes to battling words. When something is said bad against him, I think it's sort of like inside Vince, he has to say something back. If you can think of the Vince McMahon versus Bob Costas interview about how Costas went after McMahon, so McMahon just flipped the switch and just started going after Costas. And Costas is a guy who's been on WWE pay-per-views in the past, been a part of SummerSlams, been a part of WrestleManias. He's taken Vince's money, and all of a sudden he was making wrestling look like he was the worst thing in the world when Costas was in Vince's pocket. And it wasn't bad at that time when he was getting paid on him. But Costas was doing his job. I've heard Vince even say that Costas and him are friends, and that's just business, and he had a job. Vince had to defend his company, and what happens from there. I would love to see sort of the Vince with his tie off, if that's, if that makes sense to you. When I was watching the celebrities version of Monday Night Wars tonight, I saw an interview with Vince McMahon on Conan O'Brien, the late night show with Andy Richter that was on after Leno on NBC. I had never seen that before. I had never known of Vince sort of doing an interview like that. I've read Vince's Playboy interviews. Those are both of those that I've seen are really, really good interviews. I've seen him do a few business interviews where he's in a suit and tie, really talking about the world of professional wrestling. I've seen him on the Today Show with Donald Trump, but I never really saw him sitting back having fun, having a laugh with Conan, sort of sharing the expense of what WWE was, and sort of showing that he doesn't really take it all serious. So I would love to hear Stone Cold tells stories about kicking Vince in the nuts, and of course he's going to tell the story about him getting fired from WCW and Paulie calling him up and saying, just come do promos, can't work, shoulders busted. And basically him going into the WWE, being the ringmaster and knowing that the gimmick was complete shit. You guys know the gimmick. If you've listened to this show since day one, you've heard Stone Cold Steve Austin tell those 3 stories 1,000 times, and you know that he's going to sell them 100 more times after that. I think that Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of the best podcasts out there. When it comes to podcasts, podcasts religiously. I love Wrestling Observer, I love the Stone Cold Steve Austin show, and I love Cheap Heat. Those are my 3 favorite. The Law is a show that's really growing on me as well. When I made my top 5 wrestling podcasts, a lot of people really suggested going after and watching that show, or listening to that show, so I've added that to my mix, and I listen to it when I'm getting ready for the day, in the car, or going to the gym. I honestly listen to more podcasts than I listen to music now. I really only listen to music when my wife is in the car. I make my kids listen to wrestling podcasts because they don't really know what's going on in the world anyways, when I'm driving into school and things like that. But it's going to be a good one. This is going to be great. This is the first thing that's really supposed to hook people for December. I think it's great that it falls on the 1st, so people really have to decide. It's already too late now, because I think a lot of the time zones go off of the East Coast. If you haven't turned off your WWE Network subscription, they're going to bill you for the 1st. So, people last night, if they're sitting there wondering if they're going to turn this off or not, they had to turn it off by now, but then if they do it, they're going to miss the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. Yeah, you can listen to it in a week, or maybe in a week and a half or 2 weeks when he finally uploads it onto the show. You're going to think that WWE Network isn't going to be wanting him to put it up ASAP on this week's show, whether if it's going to be on the family-friendly show, or if it's going to be on the unfiltered, on the Unleashed show. I apologize. We're going to have to see which version they're going to do. My guess is with Vince McMahon, they're going to want to do the family-friendly version, and I don't know, but to see this live, to see it right after Monday Night Raw, it's a hook to me. It's a hook that makes me glad that I'm a WWE Network subscriber. I hope you guys are as well, but I'm pumped for this. I'm honestly a little bit more pumped for this interview than I am for watching Monday Night Raw tomorrow with the Raw GM. But something good's got to happen. We're going to have to see what happens with Cena. Who's he going to fight at the pay-per-view? Are they really going to give him the pay-per-view off? And if they do, is Bray Wyatt versus Dean Ambrose really going to be able to carry a pay-per-view? We'll have to see.